Good morning. I am quite a bit behind schedule. Didn't even have coffee this morning. Made myself a singles packet of my Elite. Um, got this up with cardamom. I'll be right back. My Bible's over here. So while I'm letting my coffee steep, does coffee steep? Seems like it would when you're making Turkish coffee. Ezekiel. We're not in Ezekiel. Mark. All right, I got to figure out where we're at. Mark 14, Lord's Supper. Jesus predicts Peter's denial. There we go. And we begin a little chain, a pattern with Peter. So, this whole chapter now, from here to the end, I have a lot of verses circled and noted with Peter. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. In verse 27, it says, Then Jesus said to them, All of you will be made to stumble because of me this night. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. But after I have been raised, I will go before you to Galilee. I think that's something that people forget about, is that after the resurrection, Jesus actually headed back up to Galilee. There was even a mountain he said he'd meet them at. And Peter said to him, Even if all are made to stumble, yet I will not be. Take that, Jesus. And Jesus said to him, Assuredly I say to you that today, even this night, before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me thrice, 3 times. But he spoke more vehemently, If I have to die with you, I will not deny you. And they all said likewise. There you go. Luke 22:32. Simon, Simon, assuredly I say to you, Satan has asked for you that he might sift you like wheat. But I have prayed for you that when you have returned, that you would strengthen your brethren. Let's see here. And when you have returned to me, strengthen your brethren. Yeah. 31 and 32. He wants to sift you like wheat, but I've prayed for you that your faith should not fail. That's a key with Peter here. You guys want to spend some time looking at Peter? Because there's a chain here we can follow, but it means we're going to be jumping ahead and skimming a bit. Maybe it'd be fun, though. So here we find Peter in a moment of pride, in a moment of spiritual pride, and honestly, it's a blindness. It always frightens me, I think, when people feel like they're invincible and they're doing just so well as Christians. Either that or a lot of other people have figured something out I have not yet figured out yet. And I'm still trying to figure out maybe. But I don't see that when I see the Gospels. And I see pride like Peter's here come before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. And so that's the deal here. Is Peter's like, oh, no, Jesus, no way would I ever betray you. No way would I ever, no way would I ever commit adultery. No way would I ever fall back into drugs. No way would I ever, do such a horrid thing. I would never steal from the company. I would never do. And people have those attitudes. And you know what? I mean, most people, maybe that's exactly how they feel. Like, man, that is just so far from me because I'm in this great place and Jesus is working me. And I don't know. I'm always more of the mindset of, I am wretched and I could do anything if the circumstances were right. You get me on a bad day. You give me after a series of bad choices, little bad choices that end with a great fall. This is what happens with Peter. And the first thing he does, number one, is he is full of pride and this idea that he can't fall. Everyone else, all these other 11, I don't know about the 11, but the one, Jesus, remember? keys of heaven, right? On this rock. It might not be exactly what Jesus meant, but maybe Peter at the moment thought it. So here's the pride. Well, what happens next? We're going to do jumping, so follow with me. Mark 14:37. And then he came and he found them sleeping. And said to Peter, Simon, are you sleeping? Could you not watch and pray, right, with me for 1 hour? Watch and pray, lest you enter into temptation. The spirit's willing, but the flesh is weak. And that's the truth. Guys, that's it right there. Peter had a willing spirit. I meet lots of people with willing spirits. They want to serve Jesus and they want to never be made to stumble. But Peter was ignoring a fact that Jesus Christ just told him. I know your spirit's willing. I know where your heart's at on this desire, but you need to know your flesh is weak. And so he thinks he's invincible, but now he's slacking. He's sleeping when he ought to be praying. Verse 47. And one of those who stood by, it's Peter. John 18:10 tells us it's Peter. One of those who stood by drew his sword and struck the servant of the high priest and cut off his ear. And Jesus says, have you come out as against me as a robber? Okay, that's not where he rebukes Peter, but he rebukes Peter and John, I think. John wasn't afraid to name him by name. And so what do we have now? Well, he was sleeping. Well, now you watch him responding in the flesh. Do you see this little trail we're going on? I did this when we taught Mark. It was like the second book we ever taught at Revival Church. So he was full of pride, thinking he's an indefeatable, indestructible, I'd never fall. Now he's sleeping when he ought to be praying. He's slacking. Because, I mean, if people were as awesome as you, they wouldn't have to work so hard. They wouldn't have to read their Bible as much or pray as much because, you know, I'm Peter. Well, now he's in the flesh. Instead of taking up the sword of the Spirit, he takes up a metal sword and he hacks off a dude's ear, right? And Jesus heals the guy because that wasn't what Jesus wanted. And we find often that we get in the flesh. If we haven't been in the Word, haven't been in prayer, we get in the flesh and we get irritated more easily. Long and short, right? We get irritated easily. We respond quickly. And then in verse 54, but Peter followed him at a distance, right into the courtyard of the high priest. Now Peter's following at a distance. In all honesty, that's pretty normal. You make a mistake, you mess up, you hack someone's ear off. Don't you hate it when you do that, when you hack people's ears off? So then you start following at a distance because it's awkward, right? I'm definitely spiritualizing some of this text, but just it flows pretty effectively. He follows at a distance now. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna follow from back here. I'm not gonna be as involved as I used to be. I'm not gonna be as engaged as I used to be. Just gonna, I'm still here, Jesus. I'm just way back here. And then it says he warmed himself at the fire. He sat with the servants and warmed himself at the fire. It's points 4 and 5. He starts following at a distance, and while he's back there, well, he starts hanging out with the enemy, warming himself at their fire. Friends that you really wouldn't have been hanging out with anymore, but now you find yourself hanging out with them. Maybe other friends, because it's like you're not at the place yet where you're going to go off and just get plastered and drink your sorrows away. But I mean, 1 beer is okay, and 2 beers are okay, 3 beers are probably okay, and 4 beers, I mean, I'm a big guy. Peter was supposed to be husky, and in 5 beers, it's less than a 6-pack, right? I mean, I used to drink more in college, therefore, obviously, and you find yourself, whatever enemy you want to go get warmed up by, you find yourself starting to now, oh, it's okay to be over here. And this started with pride, and it's just slowly falling down a rabbit hole. Verse 66, now as Peter was below the courtyard, and one of the servant girls of the high priest came, and when she saw Peter warming himself, she looked at him, and she said, you are also with Jesus. But Peter denied it. Right? So, warming himself. you also were with Jesus of Nazareth. And then in verse 7, the one, he began to curse and swear. Okay? He began to curse and swear. So he's kind of denying who he is, and then begins to curse and swear about this. Now, when it says curse and swear, right? What it says here in our Greek language, he pronounces anathema upon himself. So the best translation, if I wrote the NLT, that's paraphrasing, but I think getting the point across and quite accurate, would be simply to say, I'll be damned if I know that man. Because that's the pronouncing of anathema. That's what the Greek's talking about. It's not just a curse like a bad word, but he's pronouncing a curse, the curse of damnation upon myself. So it's a phrase we still use today, or maybe we don't, but it's used, right? I'll be damned if I know that man. Look where Peter's at, right? And you see the rooster crows the second time. And it says that Jesus looked up at him. The rooster crows. It hits Peter like a ton of bricks, and Jesus looks at him eye to eye. And then it says he wept bitterly. Wept bitterly. And so, here we see him basically broken. And it brings us right back to the fact that, it all started with pride. That'll never be me. There's no way I would ever fall back into that. Then sleeplessness in prayer. Not doing the things we know we need to be doing to keep us on the track. Then acting out in the flesh. Then starting to pull away. And starting to hang out with the things we shouldn't be hanging out with. The next thing you know, he's denying Jesus and cursing himself. So, that was cheery. The thing about this, though, is that Jesus prayed for him in Luke. Again, Luke 22, 31 and 32, because that's what we need to go back to, is before all of this, before any of this happened, Jesus says, right, Simon, Simon, indeed Satan has asked for you that he may sift you as wheat. I think we see the sifting now. But we have an adversative conjunction or whatever, it's change here. I have prayed for you, Jesus has, that your faith should not fail. Even though he does all this stupid stuff, pretty bad stuff, chopping off ears, saying I'll be damned if I know Jesus, nothing good there. Even though he does all this stuff, he says, your faith shall not fail. And notice he says, and when you have returned, because God's kids always come back, strengthen your brethren. When you come back, Peter, hop in the saddle and get back to work. You got work to do. And don't let this whole stupid ordeal keep you from what I've called you to do. And that's, I think, something too, is Satan likes to take things like this and kick us while we're down and keep us down. Because how could you ever go back? You said, I'll be damned if you knew Jesus. You chopped off the high priest's servant's ear. You really think Jesus wants you back? You really think he's going to take you back? And that's the exact stuff that Peter's probably hearing that night. But what he needs to hear is the word of the Lord. I have prayed for you already, Peter, that your faith should not fail. And when you come back, Peter, get back to work, strengthen your brethren. So maybe that's for you or someone you know, just the idea of, here's a trail we can follow, a model for how to fall into sin and backslide. And yet again, if and when this stuff happens, and it happens to all of us, even sometimes in much more smaller degrees, right? It's maybe not quite as bad as Peter, but we can watch the exact same thing. This whole thing happened to us. This all happened in one night, right? It was from Passover dinner to before he even makes it to Caiaphas's house. So he's at Caiaphas's house, which is like stop number 2. And so it's like, This all happened in one night for Peter. And us, we might have it all happen in one night for us and our spouse, or us and our kids, or us and whoever, right? Like in one night, we make a whole lot of stupid mistakes. But don't let one night define your week or define the next year with you in the church. Just know that it says that we have a high priest who continually is making intercession for us. That means just like Jesus prayed for Peter, he is always at the right hand of the Father praying for you. That your faith should not fail, that you will return, and that you will continue the ministry that God had given you. So, my coffee has sat long enough, it should taste like coffee now. It's the stuff with the cardamom in it. I love it. You got to get the green packets if you want the cardamom. Write that down, Hyatts. You guys have a great day. You guys take care. There's a men's Bible study at our church. I encourage, if you know any men, get them to go. It'd be good for them. If you're a man, it'd be good for you to go. Go hang out. It's a small group. Get to know the other men of the church. Strengthen each other. Pray with each other. Do the things that Jesus has told us to do so that we don't fall asleep and we don't fall and fail. All right. God bless you guys. Have a great day. I'll see you around.